Hello and welcome to another episode of Run with Julia. Today I am doing the second of a longer interview with a runner. I'm with Jo Taylor and it's fabulous to hear her stories of a running career that began in 1980. So I have a few of Jo's times and things here and a little bit of an intro before we start talking. She started running in 1980. I've got notes here. In 1980, but pre-1980, she hadn't done any sports at all, and she had smoked from the age of 22 to 26. So at 26 years old in 1980, she began her running journey. She achieved really good times. She ran her best times for 10 miles. Her best time for 10 miles was 69 minutes. Her best time for a half marathon was 1 hour 33. And her best time for the marathon was 3:18. And in this conversation, she said, I hope I haven't put people off running, because she does explore. This is the lovely thing. I love to hear the real life feelings, the real life experiences, that she loved the camaraderie of, and she still does, the camaraderie of runners, groups of people joining together, encouraging each other. She loved the training with people and encouraging. She liked encouraging herself. She liked being encouraged. All of that side and the group, the esprit de corps, she absolutely loved. But she put herself under huge pressure to perform, and that created a lot of suffering. So she says she hopes she hasn't put everybody off running. I don't think she has, because she's still running over 40 years on. She was very influential in running the running boom at the very beginning. She started with her partner at the time, the Hague Road Runners, and they did a training program 13 weeks leading up to the Hague Half Marathon, the Pier City Half Marathon. And she has subsequently gone back 20 years later in 2004 and run it. And then she's going to run it again next year, 40-year celebration. She also came to Bath, where I met her, where she was part of the Sisters Network running group, which started influencing and encouraging women to run. It was absolutely fabulous. So anything I've missed out? I don't think so. I think that I will let Jo speak for herself. It was lovely talking to her. Afternoon, or bonsoir, Jo. This is so good. Jo's in France and I'm in London. It's very exciting these days, Jo, isn't it? We can do all this thing without actually having to. It's lovely being in the same room as you, but it's good we can do it without having to be.
You don't have to run across continents.
No. How long have you been in France now?
3 years permanently, and we've been kind of moving towards it over the last few years. But now I've been retired 3 years, and this is it.
This is it. So France, and how is your French?
It's coming on. Je sais parler français. Yeah.
Very good. Now, I know you've just done a very good course, because Jo is an incredible woman. I have known Jo for actually these 40 years. I've known you, Jo, because I remember we met in Bath, in the city of Bath, the Roman city of Bath, and we met, and Jo came and she arrived a very big force, a tour de force, because she brought with her a huge amount of energy. She opened a running store called Running Free, which in those days there weren't many running stores. And you also came with the Sisters Networks you created, and you were just a hugely powerful and positive influence on Bath, on running, on women's running. But you'd begun. Tell us how it all began for you, because this was my experience. Jo asked me to talk at a Sisters Network about competition, I think I talked about, and I was 24, and it was crowds of women she'd gathered, crowds. So tell us, how did this all begin?
Oh, well, that was the kind of beginning of the running boom, wasn't it? Yeah, it was early 80s, mid 80s. And I'd come over. I'd been living in Holland for 4 years. I'd had a teaching job there, and while I was there, I with my boyfriend at the time, we started the Hague Road Runners, which was called after the New York Road Runners.
Oh yes, of course.
The Dutch loved that. It was like, oh, immediately we're kind of famous. And it started as one of those projects which everybody does now, which was in the papers. Can you take a bunch of people who've never really run before, and can you train them up to run the Scheveningen half marathon, which was the big one, the Pier City run. And so we did it, and it was all followed in the papers. And then when they did it, and everybody had done their half marathon, they said, what now? And we said, well, let's make a club, you know.
Wow. Oh, wow. And that was the beginning. And had you yourself been running for a while? What made you begin the running club, or begin running even?
There's always a man in my life when I start new things. I met a teacher at my school in Leicestershire, and he had actually been at Loughborough at the same time as you and Seb Coe, and he was older at 36. And so he and I met, and I think he wanted to be my Svengali. I think he saw me as, I mean, I wasn't a talent, but I was someone who was quite determined to suffer. I was good at suffering. So he took this new person in 1980, and we must have been in the pub, had a beer, and he said, oh, there's this new thing called the London Marathon. And I said, yeah, I'll do it, you know. I mean, he'd been, you know, when he ran the London Marathon, I think he did 2:26 with a toilet stop at age 36. And he was a little bit bitter in that he could have been a Ron Hill, he could have been this, he could have been that, but he never did. But so he anyway, he'd trained with Tim Hutchins was there, you were there, Alistair was there. I mean, it was just like a hotbed, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Well, Loughborough at the time. Yes, I didn't.
Yeah.
I never met him at Loughborough though. Obviously, I didn't meet Alistair at Loughborough either. But
oh, maybe you were in different sections, or maybe a year.
So.
You know,
I think we found out afterwards. But I've also
probably
run the Pier City in Hague, Joe. I ran it in '87.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. But anyway, so this, you were in your 20s and he was 36. And
yeah,
what
I was 26, he was 36, and he opened up a whole new world to me. And from doing nothing to doing no sports, I suddenly became a runner. Stopped smoking, joined the Charnwood Athletic Club, absolutely terrifying, because it was a real athletics club, you know, that had a sort of, people did javelin and shot put and all that, but there was a kind of what I call the old gits group, the older people running club, and they took me in, and and I just took to it really. I've never been very skillful at any sports, but running I could do. Left, right, keep going.
And but that wasn't in Holland then. That was before.
Oh, so sorry. So that was 1980. I registered for the first London Marathon, and I've even got a paper clipping from Joanne's going to do the marathon. I mean, in them days, it was a bit more unusual than today.
Because the first London Marathon was 81, wasn't it? So we had to go to post boxes to get a place. Do you remember that? We had to catch the first post.
Oh, I 5 weeks before the first London Marathon, I strained my groin doing sprint work between lampposts as part of my guru's training program, which really was bad. And so therefore I went and collected my number, cried all the time I was watching the race because I couldn't be there.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
He ran it and I just was there sort of cheering and crying.
Yeah. Oh, you poor girl. So what happened next? So you did then do a marathon, didn't you?
Yeah, I came back and did the London in '84, and then the Paris 2 weeks later. Oh, wow. I read somewhere that you could kind of keep the training going. You might as well pop in another one without having to do too much extra training.
And you ran really well. Is your best 3:18?
Yeah, I only did 4. But the first first marathon I did was Amsterdam in Holland. And I did 3:36 for somebody who never did anything. I only realizing later in life, you go, oh, that was all right, wasn't it? Yeah, I did 3:18, then 3:29, then 3:28, then 3:18.
Very good. Which was 3:18?
That was the Amsterdam. I like to choose flat courses.
Oh, yeah, so do I. Doing a marathon. So did you like running? You said he realized you like to suffer. So did you enjoy running, or did you enjoy the trying hard and the suffering, or what was it about running that held you there and meant you trained for marathons?
was very goal focused. And also I was trying to please my boyfriend, which is probably not very healthy. In fact, it definitely is not healthy. And so therefore, I gave my all. I mean, I used to finish some races, faint.
Oh my goodness.
And for some races, I would be lying at the bottom of my bed crying because I was so frightened. I expected so much from myself.
And did, and
Again,
did
not do it, folks.
did he expect? No, it's very useful though, isn't it? Because I would say that, especially having all the experience you've got, it's similar to me. We've gone through masses of experience, and I think humans we're all quite similar creatures, really, that will then recognize things. And actually, if someone can recognize that terror of lying in the bottom of your bed crying, you poor girl, was that in days before the race, or?
No, that'd be on the day of the race. Like, I don't want to get up and do it now.
I
did.
Yeah, I remember one of my marathons, which I ran very well in. It was I've done 3 2:41s and 1 2:36. They were my 4 best. But one of the 2:41s, I can remember sitting at breakfast crying, and because I felt too much pressure. And then I do remember thinking, it is my choice. I can stay and have breakfast if I want.
Yes, all self-imposed. I wasn't a proper athlete. Nobody knew me. I was from nowhere. I mean, who's looking out and being disappointed? Just me.
Yeah, but it's very real, isn't it? It's very, very real at the time. And did it carry on? Because you're a runner now, you're still running, we'll come on to that, but you have run always and you've competed always. Did that terror and pain and fear change, or did it maintain itself, or what happened?
I kind of managed it a bit better, to channel that adrenaline into something positive. Oh no, so many mantras and so much self-help positive thoughts. I mean, my God, I know them all. It's my personality.
Okay.
I had to struggle with.
So you said the mantras and you read the self-help material, but it only shifted it a little bit then.
Yeah. I think over the years you and I have talked about attachment, and I'd say to people, instead of saying I'm a teacher or something, I'd say I'm a runner. I was so that was me, so expressing myself. Then every race becomes a failure or something absolutely terrible, rather than it just a race. And I've never been able to handle competition well, so
yeah, it becomes an identity, doesn't it? It's something I think can cause a lot of pain in people when they get identified by being a runner. And as you say, even if other people aren't caught up in it, then but did you get a relief when you finished? Did you get joy from it? Did you enjoy the training? What was because yes, there was a pressure. Did you?
I love being part of a group and a wonderful sense of achievement. So with the Hague Road Runners, we did all the intervals and the hill sessions and the tempo sessions and the speed trials, time trials, and being part of a group and I say suffering is a bit over dramatic, but you're kind of going through it together, But I do remember once doing 20 hill intervals in the rain, and I was the last one to finish and they all went home and I was crying the last 3, but then there was no point really in having a cry because you just no one around to listen. It's all pointless.
If it's still part of at some level it's part of what was driving you on, wasn't it?
Driven, very driven.
So did that? It doesn't sound like that was a particularly enjoyable session, but were those training sessions enjoyable, or did you dread them like races?
I think I did a little bit. I think it's kind of a weird thing in that I ran really, really well, but I don't think I was really happy. And I didn't know any other way. I'd never done sports, so I didn't know it could be. I suppose I knew it could be enjoyable, races and training. It was kind of duty, and you gritted it out and it's putting people off probably.
No, there was a lot of that. I can remember in the same that my coach wanted people to be sick from training sessions, and he wanted people to, he didn't think, there was a kind of badge of honor if you were putting yourself through it and you were suffering, and it was perceived that you were somehow a better person. However, Jo, I did establish a way of dealing with that. I used to put on a look of pain, because I didn't want to put myself through that. And I suppose for me, I was fortunate in that I'd run and been self-propelled with it in the early days, and I'd taken my self-training, and I'd always liked running easily, and I had started to run races and actually being quite good straight away, and without really knowing it. And so there had been always the memory of it being fun. And even though joining in with my coach, it became very unfun and very pressure filled, I'd always known that there was a way for it to be fun. Whereas I think if you joined in with a whole group of people who thought it was, there was a lot of people, very hard running going on, wasn't there? And it wasn't necessarily meant to be fun.
No.
So
there wasn't that big base of beginners. So every athletics club had a running section. There'd be the 400-meter guys, the 800-meter people, and it was pretty serious. And you had to do your apprenticeship. And then there was a select elite group, like skinny little people, that did the marathon. So it was quite a serious thing. And the idea of just somebody turning up as a jogger, wanting to have a go.
Yeah, my coach didn't talk to me for 6 months because he wanted to see I had what it took. And so I think he joined the running club. I'd joined the All Boys Athletics Club, and that had been fun because even though I was having to burn my chest to keep up with them, it was fun. And they were, I think I've said this story many times, but I was ever so posh, and they would take the piss of my accent and taught me to spit, and it was a rough and tumble sort of thing. And they were probably age 15 to 20, and I was 15. But then this coach came along, and there was a kind of apprenticeship, like you said, and he didn't talk to me through the whole winter because he wanted to see, he ignored me to see if I had what it took to turn up in the rain and the horrible weather, and there was all that kind of emphasis on suffering. And we weren't allowed to wear, we had to wear singlets and shorts because we had to, go through the weather. And I had chapped knees all winter, and I can remember the hailstones on my shoulders. So it was all a bit mad. And there was I had that big thing of, you gain through pain. And that was the mantra. You gain through pain, you gain through pain. So there was a lot of emphasis on suffering. So I'm not surprised you picked that up, because so you didn't, so what, so
my boyfriend had trained with George Gandy and Seb Coe as an older athlete, and so I was kind of parachuted into this world of Olympic type training. I'd never was a jogger. I didn't. So we were doing, very soon we were doing intervals and looking at our heart rate and all of that stuff, and bleed out runs before marathons. I remember falling over in the rain on a bleed out run, low carb run, and lying there in the rain and feeling very sorry for myself, and then picked myself up and carried on running home.
I think that it became normal to have a lot of crying and a lot of dreading it, because I can remember we used to do a Tuesday night interval session. We're really going to put people off, aren't we?
No, sorry.
Here we are. Why are we still running, Jo?
Well, there's a tale.
We'll come on to that. Yeah, we'll come on to that. But I can remember we did an interval session on Tuesday nights in the dark, 1,200 meters, 6 times 1,200 meters in this muddy field, or playing fields, and it was, often very cold, very wet, very horrible. And I started dreading Tuesday night training on Monday morning, and I would dread it, and then it would be such a relief when it was over. And unbeknownst to me, I was the fastest. I was the first girl in the club, and then lots of younger ones joined. Over the first year I was alone, and I was their, inspiration, and I was their looker after and all of this. But unbeknownst to me, the coach would say to me before the session, make sure you're the leader. You've got to keep ahead of the girls. You're the one that has to keep ahead. Then he'd say to all the girls, make sure you try and beat Star, which was my nickname. And so he set us up against each other and we only found that out later. And that was in training. It wasn't very, there's so much now about that group thing. We created our own group. We created our own love for each other and our own, energy. But there was a lot of, training that wasn't particularly healthy or didn't encourage a healthy relationship, either with ourselves or with competition. And and I can remember another time where I'd actually come 7th in the Intercounties Championships, cross-country championships, which was obviously a very good result, but my coach had hoped I'd come in the first 3, so he just threw my tracksuit at me and told me to go and cheer on the girls. So those sorts of things, no wonder we didn't really enjoy it some of the time. Yes, we're telling you, for the person whoever's watching this, we're telling you how not to enjoy running, aren't we?
Yes. Do not do this at home.
So what happened, Jo? You were an incredible, like I said at the beginning, you were actually a mover and shaker though, because you did start to create the inclusivity. You brought the Sisters Network, you created the Hague Runners. So what happened? Because you must have put in a different energy into that than all the necessary for yourself. So what happened? Tell us.
I think moving to Bath, getting among a community of runners, being part of the Sisters Network, I found that the women were so encouraging. I'm not saying that other clubs weren't, but we were all. I mean, with the Sisters Network, we used to meet at different pubs around the area, and there was always somebody designated as the sweeper. We never, ever, ever let anybody just drop off the back. And it was and it didn't matter about, we'd start off with 10 minutes run around the block, and then we build it and build it and build it. And so I found it was wonderful, encouraging other people and seeing their progress. And that was wonderful. I guess I'm a teacher and a coach at heart, and I absolutely love that.
I wonder if we had to suffer a bit, because yes, I was left behind and got lost on the common and all those things when I was first training. And then once the girls came along, the other girls, I looked after them. And then I always looked after other people, encouraged. And you've always done that. And maybe, us being left alone for a start, you realise that it really doesn't help. It's only because of our whatever it was in us that kept us going. But a lot of people wouldn't keep going with that.
Yes, you're right. I hadn't thought of it like that, but yes, I had discovered another aspect to running, which is the sisterhood, where people are cheering you on, where somebody who you beat comes and shakes you by the hand, and vice versa. It's lovely, but I'd never played netball or experienced sports, so I didn't really know the world of being a sports person. I actually thought you had to hate. To run really well, you had to hate the people you were trying to beat. I didn't know. I mean, I thought that was a good thing. The more you hated them, the more you would really grind yourself down. That is so bad.
But these beliefs, you see, it's so interesting, all the different beliefs and the different things. But and also at the Hague group you started, because that was the first half marathon you ran. So what was that, an inclusive group? Because you were obviously looking after that group as well.
Well, the guru, Keith, was the kind of mainstay of the group stuff, because he'd run with Seb Coe. It was the early 80s. Coe and Ovett were the gods. Anybody who was an English runner at that time was considered to be brilliant. And so he never did enough stretching with us and things like that, but that's then. But so he was the kind of driving energy of this, and they looked to him because he was a top athlete, even at 36, very, very, very good. So he was the one they all looked to.
Oh, right, yes.
And I was the sort of assistant supporter, also looking up to him.
I see. But it was your first half marathon, and you said that is something now, because you're still running. So did you ever?
Although you said I've always run, and I have run. I've had periods where, so for example, when I did my last marathon in like 85, I actually retired. as like Olympic athletes do. And I went into mountain biking, mountain bike racing and stuff like that, still keeping the running going, but I kind of didn't really, I suppose I'm a bit of a sort of, I realized I like doing lots of different things. And the running was a really good base to launch you into doing stuff. It gave you a really good fitness that then you could just go in as a sort of amateur into stuff. But I mean, I was doing really well with mountain bike. I mean, it was early days, just simply on my running fitness.
Yeah, I see. So yes, of course. So what the running did was launch you into being a sports person.
Yes, 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 and having a go at other things. I mean, I've never been any good where there's a ball involved, like tennis or squash or football. But yeah, I could go mountain walking, mountain climbing. We did via ferratas with my present husband.
Yeah, you did some
Stuff.
terrifying stuff too, didn't you? You've done
For
some
me, it was terrifying. I did climb a 4,000 meter peak. Now, people who are real mountaineers would go, oh, it was only PD, it was only per difficile, but it was Weiss, it was Switzerland, and we had to go up with crampons and ice axes, and we had to do an alpine start at 4:30 in the morning and climb up this glacier and along this ridge all roped together. Absolutely. I was so frightened, but I did it. I actually, as soon as we hit bare rock, that solid ground, I was down on my knees kissing the rock. And my husband Neil was laughing fit to burst because he could have done it, you know, with one hand tied behind his back. But it's still, Mont Blanc is 4,000. It's in that group of Mount, you know, it's a Mont Blanc.
I think it's amazing, Joe. You're very, very courageous. So during that time when you were mountain biking and hiking and kayaking and all sorts, haven't you? Did you?
I've done a lot of that later on in life because there's a lot of life to cover here.
But so did running stay a little bit through it all, or has just been
Always, always. I mean, I had a job which involved international travel, and I'd go to Milan and business travel, and I'd go to Milan and with my running shoes, and I'd run around the local park. You get talking to people, you know, so always, and felt very safe as well. It's like a world community of runners. And then you get chatting and you do a couple more loops, yeah, a couple more loops, and then off, bye, see you. And then
so the community, so the group, the esprit de corps, the community, actually, and your coach and teacher element of you, that's been important to it all.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, encouraging other people and joining fellow spirits from anywhere around the world. You'll meet a runner and instantly you feel you've known them.
Yeah, that is so true. And did this dread or needing to suffer, is it still in you? Because I know you're running more now. Do you still have a part of you that pushes yourself to suffer or not?
I won't use the word suffer now. So that kind of sense of it's over. I was going to say that could almost be addictive. That sense of relief when you've done a session, you tick it off, you've done it well. I've been using my Garmin coach, so I get a little good job when I've done it. And I wonder if that sense of relief afterwards, you know, that wonderful feeling you get like when you've done a park run and you meet up with coffee and cake and everything. Yeah, just
That's what keeps you. So do you, during a session then, do you still find it something that's unpleasant?
no, actually, I've moved into because I'm in France and there are no park runs and there is no running club. I'm doing it all on my own. So for the last year, I've been using Garmin Coach.
Yeah.
I've done a program for 5K, 2 for 10K, and now I'm on my second week of training for a half marathon for the Pier City Loop again next March.
And that will be, is that how long, when did you do the first one? Was that in 80s?
That was about 80, 83, 84, 84.
Oh,
133.
very good. Very good, Joe. Very good. And
I only ever did one, I think. I think I only ever did one. But probably I was so amazed at that time, I couldn't face doing another one and being slower.
well, you don't have to do another one. That's a good thing, isn't it? But going back then, have you got a goal time or are you going to just go and see what happens?
I'll probably be about an hour slower. No, I think one of the benefits of getting older is the sort of, okay, you have expectations, but people have much lower expectations of you. So it's a kind of get out of jail free card. It's sort of whatever you've got inside, nobody else around you is expecting a 69-year-old woman to do an amazing time.
Well,
Unless you're in the master's world, which is another world.
well, it's more about your own pressure though, Jo. So perhaps something shifted, because it sounds like at a level you said no one was looking at you then, but maybe you felt they were when you were in your 20s.
Yes, yes. I have a sneaky suspicion I might be lying to myself, that I'm going to put some pressure on myself for this race, even though I say, oh, I just want to finish it. On my Garmin coach, I put a time down. I'm not telling you.
Okay, well, you can write it on a piece of paper and send it to me.
I'm so ashamed that it's so slow. I can't. It's one of the things as you get slower and older. Some people get slower and older a lot. You have to come to terms with that, and that's difficult.
So do
You seem to have.
Well, I think I don't think I've worried so much. I don't think even when I was younger, I put myself under the pressure you have, Jo. And I think I was very fortunate in that I think some of it's luck that I was born quite a good runner. So I do think that has an advantage. So
Yeah.
actually, I remember I used to train with three guys in Bath, Mike and Gordon, you might remember them, but and they trained, we were all 25, we all did the same training and we all ran about the same level. But I happened to make me an international athlete, and for them it made them good club runners. And I think so, I think to an extent, the fact I did put myself under pressure when I was younger, but I was a good runner. So that in itself is
together.
Yeah, that I mean not that you weren't a good runner.
No, but I wasn't an athlete. I was,
You were an athlete, but it
never done any sports. So
yeah, so the other thing was that I've not ever liked putting myself through too much pain. I really don't like it. So I never trained in a way that you describe. I never did. And occasionally I would always train up to just the level. I still do. I only train to where it doesn't put me through hell, because I always think I've got to go back. And I learned that with my coach in those early days, where he used to try and make us suffer, and I didn't want to. So I learned the art of putting on a face of pain when I wasn't in pain. And also I found that I could get some very good training sessions, and I didn't have to put myself through too much to do that. So I think I'm very disciplined, very consistent, very happy to do mileage, but did that really slowly. And when I did intervals, I generally trained alone because I didn't like training in a group.
Yeah.
Certainly was very injured from that emotionally by my experiences as a younger athlete. So I did all my interval training really alone, which meant I didn't ever put myself through that. And then occasionally, when I wanted to, occasionally in a race, I would put myself through it if I were really enjoying a race with somebody. And I would really go through it because it was fun and I wanted to. I remember once I was in Belgium. I was on an international, and I was running, and I was fourth woman, and I was feeling that I'd run quite well. Then I suddenly remembered there was prize money, and it was to third place. And I went, think of the money. So I ran faster then. My 2:36 wasn't hard. It was flowing. So I didn't put
my 3:18 was the easiest marathon I'd ever done.
There we are.
I just ran it and I couldn't believe it. I was in the zone, and I thought I'll never do another one like that. Just finished it, hardly breathing at all. But I wonder if I might have carried on running more competitions if I hadn't had that sort of background, because I raced very rarely, and when I did, I pulled all the stops out. I never raced for fun. It was dead serious, and it's only so many times I could do that. I used to say I've actually, wrung blood out of myself. I can't do that very often. And I did 4 marathons, and they did them all seriously, and that was me done.
Whereas I've always loved racing. I love competition, and I've done loads of it. So at one point I raced Nigel and I were racing every weekend.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that was my training. And also, no, I never liked putting myself through something Nigel taught me. Nigel's my first husband, and he really always, because I was afraid of pain from my history with the girls and with my coach, and afraid of that feeling. I didn't like it. And he said, don't perceive it as pain due, and stay on top of the pain, stay on top of the pace, and you don't have to put yourself through. And he was really helpful to me. And so I've maintained that. And therefore it feels the same. So I do my best, but whatever comes out, you know, I've always got aspirations from where I am to go faster. That's just part of it, which makes me go training and I enjoy. But I think that what you were doing, I couldn't have put myself through, I had to have a break after being with my first training coach person for a while. Not a big break, I've always ran, but I didn't train seriously to get over that, to then take it up with my own understanding. And I then, instead of you going through pain, my mantra came to be the one which is train hard, fight easy. So I like
yeah.
training
That's
hard,
great. Really
yeah, but
good.
not destroying myself.
Yeah,
So do you think now that you are enjoying it a bit then more?
definitely. 40 years on.
Well, it takes a while to learn to unravel these patterns, because one of my patterns was to get more caught up in outcome, and then I wouldn't enjoy it as much. So I
Yeah,
would go in a cycle, but now I'm not caught in. But I think, this is the whole point of being alive at a level, isn't it? If it takes us 40 years to learn something, it doesn't matter.
yeah. I think you've kind of, I don't think I got it quite as clearly as I have right at this very moment. No, I didn't like competing, but I didn't know you was could. And so, yeah, I did my 4 marathons, and I stopped competing, what I would call seriously, because you either compete or you don't. You don't just run around for fun. I don't do any of that. So yeah, so it's taken me a while to realise that life doesn't need to be like that. And probably part of that is meeting my present husband, who's got, I'm so happy, and life can be wonderful. It doesn't have to be a struggle. I think life doesn't have to be a struggle.
No, that's so good, Jen. That's a really good place to finish, because I think that what you said today, and me, we both had those experiences, isn't uncommon. And actually, I think if all we say to people is it doesn't have to be a struggle, and that's
No, no,
it's part
no.
of what my run with Julia is, that I
Yeah,
love I love stretching to see what I can do. I've always
yeah.
loved it. I love trying to run fast. You clearly love training well now.
I do love training. I've been absorbing your videos and just being inspired, and it's given me a different approach. So I love going out with my Garmin coach.
That's brilliant, Joe. Well, thank you, thank you. Well, I'll have to come over. There must be a race in France, or you'll have to come over to the UK, and
Well,
we'll.
there's always a city, Pier City, next March, on the
Oh,
10th of March.
oh, oh, there is, isn't there? Ah,
Ah,
is that what you're doing? You're doing that run.
yes, yes, I'm going to register it. And I've been in contact with my old club, and I've got loads of photographs from the early days, and I'm going to share them with them. And we went to a reunion. 20, the club had been in existence for 20 years in 2004. And I
Oh,
took my husband Neil with me, and they said, "Oh, wow, you're one of the original members. Are you still running?" Yes.
oh,
It was
so now
great.
it will be 40
40,
years. Oh, I
40
will
years.
consider that, Joe. That would be very good fun, wouldn't it? I'm going to consider it, everyone. I'm on air, but
Both of us doing the city pist. Wow.
amazing. Well, no, but thank you. That was
It's
amazing.
just a thought.
It is a thought, a good thought. And thank you for today. That has been wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Always great to talk to you.
Thank you, Joe. That was so brilliant. It was so lovely to talk and remember, and lovely to see you, and that you're still running, and that you're training for the City Pier City, the Hague Half Marathon. I have actually, since our conversation, now gone onto the website, and you couldn't actually register. So you had to press a thing that said expressed interest in registering. So I have a expressed interest in registering, and they're going to send me an email. So, you know, it's in motion. And anybody who would like to share their running experiences, their life experiences to do with running, please do get in touch. I'm going to do more of these interviews where it's a slightly longer opportunity to talk about your own running. And yes, I've got a couple of interviews lined up which are actually, I'm going to meet the people in person. So the interviews can either be online on Zoom or in person. And if you've enjoyed this video, please, as always, press the thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do. The community is growing. We now have 219 subscribers, and it's really lovely to meet with you all and share with you, and it's great fun for me. And I hope you have a lovely day, night, whenever you're watching this video.